Hello, I'm Susan Cadeau. Thank you for being with us. With time running out to get their work done, Oklahoma lawmakers are still struggling to close a massive budget gap that threatens to strangle core services of government. Lawmakers have been unable to reach agreement on major revenue-raising measures, and Governor Mary Fallin is now vowing to make lawmakers come back in special session if that's what it takes to avoid massive cuts to state agencies.
While Oklahoma's budget shortfall is officially given as $878 million, legislative leaders, including House Appropriations and Budget Chair Leslie Osborn, say the actual hole is over $1 billion. On Monday, House and Senate committees took up the first major revenue-raising bill of the session, a measure that would hike cigarette taxes by $1.50 a pack and increase motor fuels taxes by 6 cents a gallon. That ran into opposition from House Democrats, whose votes would be necessary to pass the measure. House Minority Leader Scott Inman said Democrats would not support the bill unless Republicans agreed to an increase in the tax rate on oil and gas production.
It's fiscally irresponsible and financially immoral to ask the citizens of the state of Oklahoma to do this while allowing the most wealthiest corporations in the history of the planet to continue to get what they've always got that put us in this mess in the first place.
The bill would generate more than $340 million. Money Osborn says is desperately needed if the state wants to avoid closing hospitals, laying off highway patrol troopers, and shutting down services for the mentally ill.
If that's what you want, and if that's what you think it means to be a good conservative Republican or a good person that just wants to thwart everything because you didn't get the one thing you wanted under the candy cane on the Christmas tree, then vote against it. But these things are going to happen.
The House committee voted 18-8 to advance the bill, but House Democrats vowed to block the measure when it came up on the House floor.
We will not vote to raise taxes on the back of middle-class families to balance this budget at the same time that the Republican majority lets the Oklahoma oil and gas companies off the hook.
Lacking enough votes to pass the measure, the House shelved the bill, leaving lawmakers no clear path to solving the state's budget crisis. One measure that would help to fill the budget hole is Senate Bill 837, which would reduce so-called off-the-top funding to the Department of Transportation by about $251 million, allowing that money to be appropriated to other areas of government. But Department of Transportation Executive Director Mike Patterson says that would hamper the effort to repair Oklahoma's structurally deficient roads and bridges.
That's going to make an impact not only on our 8-year plan, and we talk about our 8-year plan all the time, but we have outstanding contracts now that we will not be able to cash flow. We're going to have to suspend construction activity if that measure gets passed and gets put into law.
There had been some discussion of a bond issue to replace money taken from the agency, but lawmakers appear to have backed off that proposal, leaving funding for transportation uncertain. With all that taking place, Governor Mary Fallin on Wednesday urged lawmakers to take action on revenue measures, noting that the clock to the end of session is ticking.
And we are nowhere close to getting our job done to make sure that we can fund core services for our state and not have draconian cuts to different services. They're important to all of us.
Fallin employed a chart to show that even if the top 7 state agencies were left unscathed, all other agencies would have to be axed, and the state would still face a more than $19 million shortfall. Fallin insists she won't let that happen.
And if I have to veto the budget because we don't get our work done and we devastate our state agencies and not fund core mission services that our citizens actually demand that we do, then I'm willing to veto the budget. I'm willing to stay as long as we need to until we get our job done.
With cigarette and motor fuels taxes apparently off the table, Inman now argues the only avenue left to fill the budget hole is increasing the tax rate on oil and gas production, and he rejected the governor's implication that Democrats were to blame for the budget impasse.
If she would put her weight behind a gross production tax revenue increase, I think we could get this deal done. But right now, she's hiding behind throwing rocks and finger pointing at other folks, refusing to actually take responsibility for it.
Inman says there have been talks behind closed doors about a gross production tax increase, and a bill could be introduced next week. But even if it passes the House, it's likely to face an uphill battle in the Senate.
It appears that there is not enough support for any kind of a gross production tax rate increase. We have had a lot of discussions about doing away with some of the incentives, rebates, those type of deals associated with gross production.
Senate President Pro Tem Mike Schultz says he personally opposes an increase in the gross production tax.
I think it's a disincentive to drilling. And again, this state's budget this state's economy is based on drilling activity, not gross production tax.
Schultz still predicts the legislature will pass some revenue-raising measures and hammer out a budget by the May 26th deadline, but could not promise agencies would not see steep cuts in funding.
Prepare for the worst. And the worst is an 18% cut. Now, do I think an 18% cut's going to happen? No. But you prepare for the worst.